Good afternoon. Welcome to the July meeting of the Johnson County Community College Board of Trustees. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to start our meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are joined today by telephone with Trustee Lee Cross, who will participate in the meeting by speakerphone. So we have complete attendance today. Roll call and recognition of visitors.
Okay, this evening's visitors include Roberta Eveslage, Gary Anderson, Bill Henderson, and Dick Carter.
I'm going to take a moment here at the start of the meeting to welcome our newest trustee, Nancy Ingram, who was selected by the voters in April. Welcome, Trustee Ingram. Do you have anything you want to say to us on our first meeting? We welcome you.
Oh, all the advice I could give. I would start out just simply by saying that I'm honored to be here. I did call former trustee John Stewart on the 30th of June and thanked him for his service. I've known him a while and know how much this community college means to him. So I shared with him that I would do my best. I said, I cannot replace you, but I will do my best. I will be prepared, and if anyone could love it and put their heart and soul into it as much as he did, I'm the person. So I'm very happy to be here and honored to be able to serve with all of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We're looking forward to the next 4 years.
Thank you.
I want to say it's truly a meaningful honor for me to be chair of this community college. There have been a lot of great leaders at this college, and since I've been on the board, Chair Don Weiss and Chair Melody Rail and our immediate past Chair Jerry Cook have set a pretty high bar to try to meet. Jerry, thank you for your last 2 years. We all know there are many, many stakeholders at this college, whether it's our taxpayer friends or our faculty friends or the students that we're serving or the staff or the business community. There are a lot of people we try to serve, and I think what this board is going to try to do and what I will hopefully be part of in the next 2 years is to make sure we're good listeners and that we make sure we're good decision makers and that we exercise good judgment, and we do it in a civil and respectful manner, which has been my experience 4 years on this board. It's been a pleasure to work with people who come prepared and are diligent about their work and really care about it. So I'm looking forward to that, and ultimately I think all of us are working toward our vision of the college to inspire, transform, and strengthen. Inspire learning and transform lives and strengthen communities. And so if we continue to do that, even if we make some mistakes along the way, we'll probably be okay. The open forum is the next portion of our meeting. The open forum is a section of the board agenda, a time for members of the community to provide comments to the board. Comments are limited to 5 minutes unless a significant number of people plan to speak. In that instance, the chair may limit a person's comments to less than 5 minutes. In order to be recognized, individuals must register at the door at each board meeting prior to the open forum. When addressing the board, registered speakers should be respectful and civil and should not address matters related to individual personnel matters with the college. As a practice, the college does not respond in this setting when the matter concerns personnel issues or matters that are being addressed through our established grievance or suggestion processes or are otherwise subject to review by the college or the board. Are there any registered speakers for tonight?
Not tonight.
We just wasted a lot of time. No, it's an important part of our meeting, but no speakers tonight. So we will go on to the next part of our agenda, which is the college lobbyist report. Mr. Carter?
Awards.
I'm sorry.
We skipped.
I skipped award and recognition. Ron? It's 5 minutes. Award and recognition. I hope somebody else won the money. Mr. President?
Thank you, Trustee Chair Musil. I'd like to have Dr. Larson take us through the next item.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sopcich. This past spring, a team of 4 JCCC students, Kate Bridges, Megan Gladback, Kendall McDougald, and Emily Reno, were competitively selected for a grant through the U.S. State Department's U.S.-Russia Peer-to-Peer Exchange Program focused on sustainability research. JCC's team was one of 3 U.S. teams chosen, along with teams from the University of Oregon and the University of Kansas. Our team's project was a semester-long investigation into what students know about sustainable features here on campus and how students describe their interactions with those features. In April, JCCC hosted a group of students from St. Petersburg, Russia, to exchange ideas about sustainability initiatives on our campus. In May, our team traveled to St. Petersburg, where they presented their research to peer groups. Our students were coached by Christy Howell from JCCC's Center for Sustainability. At this time, we'd like to recognize Megan, Kendall, and Emily. I'm afraid that Kate Bridges could not be here this evening, along with Christy Howell. We want to recognize them for their leadership and for their engagement in this program, and of course to thank Dr. Jay Antle for his leadership of our many sustainability efforts here at the college. So thank you so much.
Would anybody like to entertain us with some Russian? No? Thank you very much for proving again that our students are outstanding and our faculty as well for having great advising and winning competitions and the opportunity to do that. Congratulations. I'm afraid you were fearful that by skipping you, I was going to make you stay for the entire meeting. You are free to stay and also free to go on to your other studies or other activities. Before Mr. Carter comes up, I do want to recognize that this year, that in the next 2 years, officers will include Stephanie Sharp as vice chair, David Lindstrom as treasurer, and Bob Drummond as secretary. And I want to thank them for being part of this effort as well, because that takes extra time. So thank you for that. Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the first meeting where I've come out of seclusion since the legislature adjourned sine die. And there's actually been some activity that has happened since the end of June. And in fact, a good deal of activity occurred this afternoon, some of which I don't have all of the details on, but the Legislative Coordinating Council met this afternoon at 3 p.m. to determine which interim study topics it would take up. And I've provided a memo to you that's contained within my report, and I'll talk about that here in just a minute. The fiscal year for Kansas ended about $16 million below what expected revenues were to be. That's really not a large number when you look at the state budget that is $6 billion plus for state general fund. I think the thing that we need to take into consideration is that that number was revised twice, once in November of 2014 and again in April, to more accurately reflect the revenues that were expected by the state. And so that number was revised down significantly based on actual realization of what dollars came in. I think what begins now is sort of a month-to-month review of the policies that were put into place and what type of dollars begin coming into the state's accounts. And that is certainly something that we'll be following over the remaining fall months as the Legislative Budget Committee will meet later on in November and December and begin to assemble tweaks for the 2017 budget that they'll begin discussing in January of 2016. I've seen several reports that indicate that certain lawmakers or some lawmakers think that the budget will be okay for the next few years. I think that's up in the air. I think a number of people are very concerned about what happens moving forward. We also have just seen the Supreme Court affirm the decision that was handed back to them by the lower court. Whether or not that requires a special session, I think we'll have to see. It's not a large sum of money, but again, there are still unfinished business, both from the current fiscal year and now we're into the new, the past fiscal year, and now we're into the new fiscal year beginning July 1. The thing that we're beginning to see receive a lot of attention and press across the state is the property tax lid piece of legislation that passed. We're seeing a number of communities, either through their chambers or through legislative town halls, where business leaders and local government leaders are taking to task legislators that passed that particular piece of legislation. And I think that we'll continue to see that. It's going to be discussed, at least as far as legislative budget is concerned, over the course of the interim. But I think that we'll see another round of talks about that matter next year. I think those that were in favor of passing the lid and the caps will want to seek to implement those provisions earlier or sooner than the several-year delay that was passed in order to give folks time to figure out how that will work for budgets. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation across the state, but that's what will happen now because of that tax lid. I did include an article that appeared in this week's Hutchinson News about one of those town halls, and I think you'll begin seeing even some of those types of meetings here more locally as well. Folks having conversations about just exactly why did that need to happen the way it did, where do we go from here, and I think it will be a big topic that we'll begin dealing with again next session. And then finally, I would just add that there are a number of interim committee topics that will be discussed that we will certainly be following on behalf of the college. One being a review of and suggested changes to clean up the changes to the election laws and the timing of the elections. There will be a committee that will be discussing those matters this fall. Certainly the review of working after retirement as it relates to CAPERS will be a hot topic in Topeka and one that would impact us. And then finally the legislative, the overall legislative budget as they begin to prepare for next year's true up or tweaks in the budget for the state. So let me stop there. I did include some attachments that have those supporting documents and see if there are any questions, Mr. Chair.
Questions? Trustee Cook?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Carter, in your second paragraph, and you referred to it where it says some lawmakers feel that now that the new budgeting process is in place, everything will be fine, and yet we have other team members that think it won't be. Help us understand where you think the people that think everything's going to be fine with an $840 million debt and a $50 million possible reduction yet to be made, how they can feel that things are going to be fine.
I certainly can't speak for them. I think that anytime you're talking budgets and after a lengthy session like this, you're going to have folks on both sides of the budget discussion. Many of the policy changes that were passed do not generate money for quite some time. One example is a HMO privilege tax. That tax that was passed on to insurance providers, HMO insurance providers, will generate around $48 million. Those dollars do not come into the state's coffers till next March or April. And so we're talking about a state that has a financial need now, but some of those solutions do not take effect until down the road. And so I think it will be very difficult to determine where. That's why there's going to be this month watch of just exactly how the revenues come into the state's coffers and where we go from there.
And one additional, if I might, under the interim committee topics on the legislative budget, just exactly what is the efficiency study?
The legislature I believe it was in the Senate Ways and Means Committee, had a discussion on developing I don't even know if it'll be an RFP, but they appropriated $3 million for an efficiency study to come in and make suggestions where cuts or efficiencies or things of that nature that would benefit the state budget could be made.
Is that within state government?
That was within state government.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions? Trustee Cross, you just shout out whenever you have something. We'll try to accommodate you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions.
I have a couple. The property tax lid does not affect community colleges in the current legislation.
Currently, it does not.
Are we next in somebody's crosshairs?
If you look at one of the items contained in the local government section of the interim request, the topic is how to reduce and limit local units of government across the state of Kansas. I think that's a nice way of saying things like that. At what point do you find yourself in that life preserver boat?
And then I think the trouble that most citizens have is we keep talking about where we are versus projections.
Yeah.
But the projections continue to change. And they were downgraded twice during the last fiscal year to the point where the last one we only missed by 16 million. How much did we miss the first projection on which the 2015 fiscal year budget was premised?
$100 million.
Several hundred million? Because I think it behooves all of us to understand where the projections are, because I can meet projections if I lower them enough to where there's no doubt I'm going to meet them. And the question I think we should be asking, we ask at the college and we ought to ask at the state is, are we meeting the needs of the missions and the values and the needs of the state or this college, rather than simply meeting projections? And so that's more of a statement than a question, I guess, as always, when I comment on your legislative report. Anything from the president? Thank you. It was a, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Drummond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question about speculation on Supreme Court ruling and how that might be dealt with, and what speculation there might be regarding addressing that need.
For the block grant funding?
Yes. Or other mechanisms they might have.
It happened very quietly. It was a week ago, or maybe the first part of this week, that there was a news article that indicated that the Chief Justice signed off on the lower court's decision. If you'll recall, they had stayed the decision for a brief period of time because there were a number of other things going on. I think it's a bit of an unknown how that will move forward. There was a request from the Senate Minority Leader to have an education budget study that I think that the Legislative Coordinating Council will take up and discuss in August. Anytime you have a significant shift or movement in the way that you fund something or redistribute the money, you're going to have some hiccups and some issues to deal with. And so I think there's a large part of that is unknown.
One follow-up, if I could, please. If, in fact, this all moves forward like it might, implications for the rest of the state budget and social services, community college education, higher education beyond community colleges?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to say moving forward. There are very few places that you can trim budgets in state government, either because of caseloads or things that have a debt requirement. One of those areas is higher education that you can trim.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Appreciate your efforts on behalf of the college. We'll move to committee reports. Human Resources, Dr. Drummond.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to report that we did not need a meeting this past month, therefore we did not have one, and there is no report.
Thank you. Learning Quality, Trustee Cross. Lee, do you have I don't think you guys met for Learning Quality. Do you have a report?
We didn't meet.
We did not meet this month, Mr. Chair. There was no meeting in July.
Okay. We'll move on to Management Committee, which apparently met and worked hard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to announce we did meet, and Trustee Lindstrom and Trustee Cross were trustees in attendance at that meeting. We met on Wednesday, July 1st, and with a large contingency of staff. We had a very busy agenda to start off the year, as we always do in July. By the way, all of that report and documentation is found on page 1 through 26 of your board packet. The first item deals with college sponsorships of various community events. Christy McWard reported that each year the college sponsors selected events that help the college maintain strong community relations and take advantage of advertising opportunities. The organizations are listed on page 1 of your packet. I would say that I think each year the staff does a very thorough job of going through the many requests that this college gets to sponsor events. And I believe that our administration and staff are very sensitive to the significant importance of being involved in those events, but there has to be a time when we draw the line and say that we just can't participate in everything. We probably could participate in 2 or 3 events a day, if not several a week, throughout Johnson County. And so you have that report. We had detailed discussion about those items. It is the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve the sponsorships listed for the 2015-16 fiscal year at a cost of $10,500 plus an additional $3,000 contingency for a total cost of $13,500, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the recommendation on the contributions for community events. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried unanimously.
Barbara Larson presented a draft of the 2015-16 Management Committee Working Agenda, like all committees present. It is found on pages 3 and 4 of your packet. It is the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees approve the fiscal year 2015-16 Management Committee Working Agenda, and I'll make that motion.
You want a second? Second.
Been moved and seconded to adopt the Management Committee Working Agenda for fiscal year 2015-2016. Is there any discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously.
Next recommendation has to do with the college's fiscal year 2015-16 budget. The notice of public hearing is on page 6 of the board packet and states that the board will hold its public hearing on the budget in August. After the public hearing, the budget must be filed with the county and the state. I would like to call Rachel Lears to the podium to give a few remarks about the budget process. This is a process that starts early in the year. We go out throughout the year, and I think it's always helpful to just review the steps we've taken and where we're going and what our next actions are. And Rachel was very thorough in our management committee, so thanks for being here. And give us a quick overview, Rachel.
Sure. The document you have before you is just the one-page notice of public hearing. It is simply the legal summary form of the budget which you approved in May, which is really the culmination of about a 9 or 10-month effort of the college administrative staff to produce the budget document. This one-page summary, upon your approval and signature tonight, would be published in the legal record next week. It will be published for 10 days and is effectively the announcement of our public hearing, which is August the 13th, the date of the next board meeting. Assuming that the budget is officially approved after the hearing on the 13th, I will file it by the 25th of August with the county and with the state. So those are really the next steps.
Questions of Rachel?
Thanks, Rachel. It is the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to authorize the publication of the notice of public hearing of the 2015-2016 budget and budget summary, subject to adjustment as actual expenditure figures are available. Furthermore, it is the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to authorize the publication of the notice of vote at a later date, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any additional discussion? Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thanks, Rachel. The next item is the regards to funds transfer. In November of 2006, Johnson County Community College Foundation established a donor fund to create an endowed professorship in healthcare education. Per the letter of agreement, the college is to provide a monetary contribution for the balance of the salary and benefit costs of the position in excess of the annual endowment income, which is distributed from the foundation to the college. It is the recommendation of the Management Committee, and we've been doing this process each year for this endowed position since '06. It is the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to authorize the transfer of $141,589, subject to June 30, 2015 fiscal year end payroll adjustments from the general fund to the endowed professorship restricted fund as permitted under KSA 71-614. The transfer of funds will be recorded as of June 30th, 2015 in the 2014-15 fiscal year, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the recommendation. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously.
The next three recommendations have to do with signature authority, and as we know, when we change officers, we change the signatures of certain financial operations of the college. I'm recommending that the board consider all three of these recommendations in one motion. Unless there are objections, I'll read each of the motions, and then I'd like to vote with all three. First, it is the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to designate Mr. Greg Musil, Mr. David Lindstrom, Dr. Joseph Sopcich, Dr. Barbara Larson as authorized signers for the college's federal Perkins loan account. And I'll make that motion. Secondly, it is the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to designate Mr. Greg Musil, Mr. David Lindstrom, Dr. Joe Sopcich, Dr. Barbara Larson as authorized signers for the college's deposit accounts, and I'll make that motion. And lastly, it is the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to authorize the President, the Associate Vice President for Financial Services, Chief Financial Officer, and the Director of Accounting Services and Grants to administer the placement and redemption of investments. I'll make these three recommendations in a single motion.
Is there any objection to taking those all at once? We have a motion and a second. If not, is there any discussion on any of the three? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last two recommendations are a little bit more detailed. Refer to the issuance of Student Commons and Parking System Funding Revenue Bonds, Series 2015. As the board is aware, we have had several discussions about the opportunity to benefit from this low-interest environment by refinancing the 2006 Student Commons and Parking System Revenue Bonds. Last month, the board adopted a resolution authorizing the refinancing of these bonds with a value of $4,250,000. Earlier today, working with Mr. Bill Henderson from Piper Jaffray, the college's financial advisor, the college accepted bids for this refinancing, and at this time I would like to invite Mr. Henderson to the podium to inform the board of today's proceedings. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. We had a very successful sale today at 10 a.m. We received 6 bids, which quite frankly exceeded expectations. I thought we'd probably be more in the 4 range, so there's quite a bit of interest in the college's securities. I handed out before the meeting a brief handout for your review that summarizes the results of the sale. I think it's important to start with congratulations on the college getting the AA+ rating reaffirmed for the Student Commons and Parking System revenue bonds. The important thing to note there is that that rating, the AA+, is the highest rated revenue bond for a community college in the country. These are not bonds backed by the full faith and credit of the college, but these are just simply from the enterprise fund that the college operates. So the AA+ is an outstanding rating, and probably the one reason that we received so many bids today. As you recall, the final maturity of this particular issue is only 6 years, so it's a fairly short bond issue, but despite that, we saved quite a bit of money. The winning bid was Country Club Bank at a 1.479%. To put it into context, the college's debt on the bonds that are being refinanced, the Series 2006 issue, the average of the remaining bonds is 3.72. So it had a pretty substantial decrease in the cost of funds. The result of that, even though the period of time in which we're going to be earning the savings is short, the savings are very significant. We're saving a gross sum of about $300,000 or $50,000 annually. So it was a very successful sale today. On the second sheet is a summary of all the bids. You'll see at the bottom, the true interest cost column. I just wanted to point out the range of the bids. The successful bid, as I mentioned, was 1.47. The sixth place bid was 1.73. So a pretty broad range in bids. So, but the important thing is the college got the 1.47, which is a very good rate, and obviously the savings are very significant. So we could not be more pleased. Definitely exceeded our estimates, and so that's always a good thing. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Tonight we're asking you to adopt the bond resolution, and with adoption, then we will continue to do paperwork until the closing, which will occur August 18th.
Are there any questions for Mr. Henderson? Or Bond Counsel Gary Anderson, who's also here tonight. Thank you, Gary, for showing up on this and helping us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. We do have two motions. The first, it is the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to approve awarding the sale of $4,250,000 of student commons and parking system refunding revenue bonds to Country Club Bank, Prairie Village, Kansas, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
The second then refers to the,
Motion carried unanimously.
I'm sorry, the resolution. It is the recommendation of the Management Committee that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the college administration to adopt the final resolution contained in the board packet authorizing the issuance and deliver of approximately $4,340,000 of student commons and parking system refunding revenue bonds, Series 2015, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion on that motion. If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously.
Finally, the Management Committee received several reports from staff. Andy Anderson presented information about an affiliation agreement and shared funding agreement, which can be found in the consent agenda. There was an insurance program update from Tom Clayton, an assessed valuation update from Rachel Lears, as well as a monthly budget update. I think that assessed valuation update, we had planned on 6.6 and it's dropped to about 6.4, minor change. And I understand, Barbara, that we'll finalize that in October when we deal with the budget at that time. In it, Ms. Lears presented information related to the fiscal year 15 adopted budget and the fiscal year 16 budget. Ms. Lears also provided a review of financial plans for capital improvements. The board has discussed proceeding with approximately $9.8 million in capital infrastructure improvements. A more comprehensive presentation will be made in our August management meeting and subsequently at our August board meeting. Mitch Borchers presented the sole source report and bid RFP summary, which can be found on page 19 of the board packet. Rex Hayes provided a monthly update on capital infrastructure projects, and his report is on page 20 of your packet. Sandra Warner provided a monthly update on projects and information services, and this report begins on page 21 of your packet. That concludes the management report. Mr. Chair, I defer to Trustee Lindstrom or Trustee Cross for comments. Otherwise, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Comments from either Trustee Lindstrom or Trustee Cross?
Just one comment. Want to thank bond representation and staff for bringing that to our attention.
Our bond team looks for opportunities to refund at lower interest rates, and in this case, saved a gross amount of $300,000, which in the overall budget may not look like much, but that can fund an awful lot of student activities or faculty or other services. So thank you for doing that. Any other questions of anybody on the Management Committee?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cross. If not, we'll move on to the President's recommendations and start with the Treasurer report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to present the Treasurer's report for the month ending May 31st, 2015, which can be found on pages 27 to 37 in your packet. Briefly, here are a few highlights. Page 1 of the Treasurer's report is the general PTE funds summary. Please note that the year-to-date revenues reflect continued trend ahead of last year, and year-to-date expenditures remain slightly lower. As of May 31st, 2015, approximately 92% of the fiscal year has expired. Ad valorem property taxes show that only 62% have been received, which is because the college receives its revenue in two large disbursements per year in January and in June. The annual June disbursement of $33.1 million was received on June 5th and will be reflected in the June's Treasurer's report, which comes out next month. In Section 8 on page 36, please note that as of May 31st, we had a book balance of $77.7 million with $14.2 million in outstanding commitments, leaving us with an unencumbered balance of $63.5 million. The college's unencumbered cash balance in the general fund was approximately $10.1 million more than the same time last year. Very well done. During May, the college made scheduled payments on Series 2006 revenue bonds, Series 2011 revenue bonds, and Series 2012 revenue bonds. These payments totaled $316,649 and are reflected in the plant fund section, page 33 of this month's Treasurer's report. Expenditures in the primary operating fund are within approved budgetary limits, and it is the recommendation of college administration that the Board of Trustees approve the treasurer's report for the month ending May 31st, 2015, subject to audit, and I would make that recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions for Trustee Lindstrom, our treasurer? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried, again unanimously, to adopt the treasurer's report. Dr. Sopcich.
Thank you, Chair Musil. To keep the pace of the meeting going, which is record-setting, I have to say, we're going to do a lightning round, and so and it will be like lightning, I can assure you. So, Dr. Korb.
Okay, well, I would just like to highlight a partnership that we have with, that Johnson County Community College has with Workforce Partners, Kansas Workforce Partners. And we've always worked closely with them, but we have just started in June. They now are having one of their counselors come here and be located on our campus part-time. And so what that allows us to do is to have our students, both credit and continuing education students, have access to a workforce investment, one of the workforce counselors that links people, well, helps them come up with a training plan and help them re-enter the workforce. And they have funding available, so being able to link them with some of our continuing ed classes or some of our credit classes, have them right here where the students and the staff can interact is really valuable for all of us. So we've always had an ongoing relationship with them, but this is a brand new partnership that we just started, so we're excited about it.
That's great. Thank you, Judy. Dr. Larson.
Thank you, Dr. Sopcich. After 3 years without a tornado warning being issued in Johnson County, in the early evening on Monday, July 6th, there were 3 separate tornado warnings issued. The college initiated its emergency operations measures accordingly. From 5:19 p.m. to 5:57 p.m., the college's internal tornado sirens and public address system were activated a total of 6 times, instructing the campus community to seek shelter immediately in a storm security area. At approximately 5:35 p.m., in consultation with Dr. Sopcich, we made a decision to delay the start of 6 p.m. classes until 6:30 p.m. During the incident, 4 text and email communications were sent to students and employees using the Rave Alert system. The desktop alert system, digital signs, Twitter, and Facebook were also activated after each update. College staff did an excellent job in performing their roles to ensure the safety of students, faculty, staff, and visitors. Campus police officers guided individuals to designated storm security areas. Our police dispatch center handled extraordinary call volumes with calm professionalism. Marketing and publication staff responded quickly to post information to multiple communication channels. Still, we use these incidents as learning opportunities, chances for improvements. A debriefing meeting of key individuals was held less than 48 hours after the event. Elisa Pacer, our emergency preparedness manager, also gathered feedback from all building emergency leaders, or BELLs as we call them. We identified training and communication issues and have plans in place to address them. We also recognize that this event occurred after normal business hours during our slower time of the year. So it was a great opportunity to prepare for a time when it will be much busier and many more students and staff and faculty on campus. So we are always seeking to improve, but again, I was very proud and impressed by the work that was done within a very short period of time.
It's terrific. Thank you, Barbara.
Can I ask, how many students, faculty, and staff, like what percentage are signed up for the RAVES alert system? That's a voluntary sign-up, right? No, you have, that's part of your admission? Everybody signs up?
You must opt out. So in
Okay.
other words, you are in unless you make a choice to opt out.
And as part of, we've gone through the new phones in classrooms so that we can, is that part of the system so that there were alerts, audible, verbal alerts within classrooms that were active?
I would say that was one of the opportunities for improvement that we identified. There was a training issue in terms of activating that system, and so we will make sure that they are activated in the future.
Good. Trustee Sharp.
Thank you, Chair Musil. Was that your first tornado warning?
It was. Yes. Thank you.
Welcome to Kansas.
Welcome to
It's been a long
Yes,
time.
welcome, welcome. I was just curious if that was your first.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Any other questions for Dr. Larson? Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. Mr. Anderson.
surprised you called on me for the lightning round.
Well, it is kind of an oxymoron.
But I've practiced, it'll be.
And is it in poem form?
Yeah, I thought it would be good, since we're finishing up the summer term and getting ready for the fall, just to give a sense of the size of the undertaking that goes into preparing for the fall semester. We have over 900 courses that'll be offered in the fall. That's well over 2,500 sections that are scheduled in the book. We have 486 purely online sections. There are close to 200 to 198 hybrid sections that will be offered. There's slightly over 100 sections that will be offered in 8-week terms. We have 825 sections with start dates after the first week of classes. One of the goals, we have tried to avoid late start classes as such. It's important for students to be in class from the beginning, but we have scheduled classes that are starting, that actually begin after that first week of class, so if students discover needs, they have an opportunity to enroll later. We have over 340 College Now sections that are scheduled with the high schools. We have 22 sections that are in Lawrence, Kansas, as we continue to expand in that area. So that gives you some sense of just the size of the undertaking and the work that you all are making decisions about in an ongoing basis. So thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Thank you, Andy. Great job. And a fantastic report. And it's remarkable the breadth of the classes that are offered here at the college. It's amazing. All right, Dr. Weber.
We got a lot of exciting things going on in success and engagement, so I'm going to go really fast through a couple of them. During the month of June, we had 3 what we call jumpstart sessions. We had 26 students come to these sessions, and they went through little clinic sessions on money matters, nuts and bolts, what you can do on campus, resources on campus, student-faculty panel. So it's really to kind of get students who are registered and engaged to come to continue, because there's a summer melt phenomenon going on with students who plan to go to college who don't show up. In the records office, from spring of 14 to spring of 15, we did what we called auto-grad. It was a pilot project for a little while, and we auto-grad, so graduated or gave certificates to 408 students. So that was pretty cool. Students who didn't apply, but we kind of pushed them to graduate or receive a certificate. And thirdly, I didn't realize she was here as part of the Russia study, so we missed an opportunity there. But one of the students who was there, Kendall McDougall, recently received the 2014-15 Leah Plarsky Award, probably most similarly to a Heisman for community colleges for females. It's handed out annually since '95 in recognition for students in their sportsmanship, leadership, community service, academic excellence, and athletic ability and achievement. First nominee we felt from JCCC in the past who's been met the criteria for it, and she received the award. Not only did she go to Russia, she's also studied in China. She is majoring in international and environmental studies. And the neat thing for me, being a small town kid myself, she's a small town girl who came to the city. I forgot to say this, she won the national championship in javelin, and while she was throwing for the championship, her dad was in ICU. And so it was a real impactful thing for her, but just came here, small town girl, just eating up the city and doing just really well.
Awesome.
Thank you, Randy. Christy McWard.
Thank you, Dr. Sopcich. I'm going to use my minute to tell you about our exciting new partnership with Sporting Kansas City, Kansas City's Major League Soccer club. Some of you already are aware of this, but I'm happy to tell you that it is underway. We had our first activation at the June 27th game, and an activation means we go out with our marketing tent, we take our team, we take faculty, we take staff, and we actually put our programs on display for the 20,000 people that walk by the tent on their way into the game. So if you've been to a Sporting KC game, you know the Sprint Activation Plaza is there, and it has team tents. And if you haven't gone, please go. You'll be a fan. These are excellent community events for us, great marketing opportunity, sell out every game. And on June 27th, we took our cosmetology program out there, and they put on face tattoos of JCCC Cavaliers and Sporting KC. They spray painted blue and silver hair for team colors. We were great. We were doing out there with our street team, doing selfie stick pictures, and people are posting them to Facebook and tagging themselves and citing JCCC. So this is new for us this year, very exciting, and we're going to be doing it again. In August, we're taking our animation program out there. They're going to be doing a demo. Jeff Byers is going to be doing this. It's not only a great community partnership, it's an excellent faculty partnership with marketing. We are really getting a lot of enthusiasm, and faculty and staff are going out of their way, spending their weekends and evenings doing this. Culinary is also going out in the fall. They're going to be making up hors d'oeuvres and desserts in the tent. That's either September or October. And then we'd also like to get our health programs out there this fall too. So,
Christy, are there any plans to take the trustees out to the activation tent?
I can make that happen.
We have dibs on the culinary one this week.
Yeah, I'll hook you up. Yeah.
Apparently, Dr. Cook's silver hairspray is still staying in. It looks great.
Great job. Thanks, Christy. Today I was asked by several people how long I was going to go tonight. And it wasn't as if they were expressing an interest for me to go longer than normal. So I'm going to keep it very brief as we're approaching the 1 hour mark.
Tell us what we need to know.
Here you go. I received some fantastic correspondence with regards to some of the great accomplishments that our faculty and staff are doing here on campus. The first one is an email that was forwarded to me by Kate Allen, and it was from the Kennedy Center in Washington. And it recognizes the remarkable work of Debbie Allen from the Shawnee Mission School District and Angel Mercier from our college. And it praises their work and commitment to making arts a part of a complete education. And the person from the Kennedy Center, her name is Barbara Shepard, stated that we are the only community college in the country that is working in this type of project at the Kennedy Center, and that's quite a distinction. And lastly, I received an email, and this is about what we do here and what we do in the classroom. And it's from a professional who happens to work for Henderson Engineering, and he is recognizing, or this is sent to Professor Hughes, Tom Hughes, and I want to read to you what he says. He goes, "The JCCC CAD drafting program is incredible and has been an excellent source of information and training, even for someone like me already in the field. I so enjoyed every class and will truly miss coming over to the ITC. You, Damon, Susan, Tim, Paul, Margaret, and others run a well-oiled machine. I have so appreciated your attitude, knowledge, and sense of humor in the classroom. You keep learning fun while at the same time keeping such an order to things. I'm sure sometimes being an instructor is not very rewarding, and you may feel you're not making any difference in the lives of your students, but let me assure you, you are." I think that's a great piece of input from a student here, a professional who's using one of our classes to definitely strengthen their skills. And hats off to Tom and everyone in that area. So, Trustee Musil, I conclude my report.
Any questions for the president or the lightning round participants? If not, is there any old business? I don't think we have any old business. I don't think we have any new business. So we're ready for reports from board liaisons. First for the Faculty Association, Ron Paulsek.
Good evening, and thank you, Chairman Musil, and it's good to see you all again. The FA would like to welcome Nancy Ingram, a new trustee for Johnson County Community College, and we wish her well. I would like once again to introduce other new members of the Faculty Association for starting the new year. They are myself as president of the association, and if Brian Wright would stand up, he's our vice president. We have Dennis Argo, who's our secretary, and then Brett Cooper, if he would stand up. He's our treasurer of the association. We have Jeff Anderson, who you all know is the UNISERV rep, and then Deb Williams is the position of past president. We, the faculty, counselors, and librarians, have been very productive this summer working on and I have a whole list of them, but it's a lightning round. Student enrollment, counselors, faculty, staff, all working on student enrollment, preparing for the start of the fall semester, meeting college-wides, as well as in discipline areas, such things as strategic planning, task force, course development, course redesign, preparation of old and new courses to be taught by faculty, and other meetings. One in particular, I was privileged to attend. It was hosted, or it was run by Dr. Anthony Ferrero, and it was a STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. We're looking at a grant to try to help our students at Johnson County move in that area. There were 17 full-time faculty that were attending, took their summertime off to attend the meetings, such people as Brett Cooper, Melanie Harvey, Kathleen O'Neill, Jeff Lewis, Chris M. I don't want to list them all, but you get the idea. It was a great time. The Dean of Mathematics was also there. I want to acknowledge that. That was Sheila Donetsky. Other things, we're refreshing ourselves by attending and presenting at conferences this summer, local, nationwide, and international. In fact, Deb Williams is in Australia. Okay. Some of us using these days of the summer to refresh and relax before the hustle and bustle of the fall 2015 semester. But with less than a month away from the start of a new school year, everyone is doing their part to help get this new semester off to a great start. And we still have the summer semester to complete, which will be 1 week from today, will be the end of the summer semester in 2 hours and 9 minutes when the testing center closes. And the last thing I want to add on this list is for Christy McWard, and that is, what about a tent for the math department? We could do some integrations and statistics, and we can put them on their face and things like that. So I'd love to do that. And to finish up, I just want to, and I've always been inspired by Jerry Cook, Trustee Cook, excuse me, and that is JCC inspires learning to transfer lives, strengthen communities. Thank you very much. Any questions for me?
Questions for Ron? Thank you. Very active over the summer. People think faculty don't show up in the summer, and many of them do, and that's good work, and especially on your help and enrollment, because that's a major priority. So thank you for doing that, and let us know how we can help at the tent or enrollment, because I think the trustees should have a role in that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Johnson County Research and Education Triangle, Trustee Lindstrom.
Mr. Chairman, my first report will be tonight that I am attending my first meeting of JCERT on Monday, July 20th, so I don't have a report.
Kansas Association of Community College Trustees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The KACCT has not met since our July board meeting. Well, our next meeting is in September. But I would like to take this opportunity to talk about the ACCT, which had our summer board retreat last week in Washington, D.C., and I want to thank this board again and this college for allowing me to position myself to be on the national board. To my knowledge, Johnson County Community College has not had a representative on the national board. Kansas historically has been pretty engaged back in the 80s particularly with the National Association, and I just want to thank this board for allowing me to do that, and I'll do the same with the Kansas Association of Community College Trustees. I'm filling the interim position for Bob Feit from Nebraska, and Trustee Feit had to move from his one school district, or his one college community region to another for family reasons, and therefore, if you're not a trustee at a college, you cannot be a trustee on AACCT's board. And I guess for the public, I would remind there are 5 regions. Each region has 3 elected trustees, board members, for 15. Then there are 9 at-large board members and 2 appointments for a total of 26. I will be running, so I'm filling the interim position until October of 15, and then at the Congress in San Diego in October, I'll be running for that Western region slot. It is a 3-year term. We arrived last Thursday. Late in the afternoon, I had a chance to sit on the executive committee. The executive committee of ACCT is made up of 5 members. Robin Smith is a young lady from Lansing Community College who's the current chair. Roberto Zarate is the chair-elect from Alamo College in Texas. Bakari Lee is the vice chair from Hudson Community College in New Jersey. Emily Yim is the secretary-treasurer from Edmonds Community College in Washington. And Leroy Mitchell is the past chair from Westchester Community College in New York. It was very interesting observing them in their meeting. The ACCT is going to put a lot of emphasis on excellence in governance by their trustees, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But the educational strategy and the vision and the goals and the mission is to have trustees who understand principles of excellence in governance. And as I observe this board, I'm really proud to be a part of a group. Trustee Ingram has been so aggressive in learning and getting caught up in communicating with me, and I really applaud Nancy for that. But all of you are very professional in how you go about the business of governing a college. I know Dr. Sopcich has referenced that from time to time. But as I observe these boards, there are issues on boards across the country that we do not have to spend a lot of time on, and that has to do with how to practice excellence in governance. And so I believe this college is positioned well. Our goal is to make sure that all colleges, 1,200 of them around the country, are aware of that. I would also say that this is, then Friday we went into a full meeting, and we had some outside speakers. This is really the time for community colleges across the country. I know we kind of maybe yawned or took for granted President Obama's announcement of America's College Promise, but that is getting a lot of attention across the country. You'll remember at the Chicago Congress last October, the League of Cities, and I forget Dr. Sopcich, the CEO from the League of Cities who addressed us from Florida, the executive director. The League of Cities is very interested in the College Promise now because it can be an economic development tool for their local cities. Since October, the Council of Mayors, and the Council of Mayors is made up of communities of 50,000 or more in population. The Council of Mayors has passed a resolution, endorsed a resolution that the College Promise campaign is very good for their cities. And while we probably, well, what do we have? We don't have very many cities in Kansas with 50,000 population or more. But it seems to me that also for communities with lesser populations, and we have some colleges not only in Kansas but across the country with smaller populations that are challenged financially, that to understand that their communities, and I appreciate Trustee Musil, your reference to inspire learning to transform lives to strengthen communities. That's really, I think, a core mission statement for us. And we talked a lot about that in Washington, D.C. last week about an example of how our board tries to live that in the decisions we make regarding our strategic plan and all of the operational strategies that we take place. So while we might think states aren't interested in supporting a portion of that funding, while we might think the federal government can't fund, I believe the plan was 75%. A lot of people were uptight about the terminology of free education, and so I think that language has changed to debt-reduced education. The fact of the matter is, if we believe community colleges are accessible and are affordable, then it's our responsibility to make sure that all the population within our respective counties have a chance to get an education, to improve their lives, to strengthen communities. So I'm pleased that the League of Cities and the Council of Mayors is very much behind this initiative. And if we can get state legislators to understand that and our delegates to Congress to understand that as an economic tool, we might make some greater progress. Spent a lot of time on that with outside speakers coming in on Friday. We then spoke about the higher ed standards. That is not going away. That's very live and breathing heavily. I mentioned we spent time on the vision statement of ACCT. The core belief of the association is that the Association of Community College Trustees, Board of Directors elected by member boards to represent the nation's community college governing boards, believes that citizen governance is an appropriate and democratic means by which to achieve the educational and economic goals of the nation. And I think what we've talked about, Mr. Chair, for a long time is the closer that those governing decisions are to the local governments, the more effective they can be. We value 6 things, and I'd like for us to think about them. I know that we'll be pushing this at KACCT in our educational program. Effective boardsmanship, advocacy of your college, student success. We're about student success. Innovation, diversity, and service. And so those are our main 6 things. I did challenge the group, and I do have your pen, Dr. Sopcich, about I want to challenge you. It didn't take me long Friday morning to challenge the whole group on their mission, and I apologize, Mr. Chair, for not knowing the ACCT mission by heart, but I think it's backwards, and here's what it says: to foster the principles and practices of exemplary governance while promoting high quality and affordable higher education, cutting-edge workforce and development training, student success, and the opportunity for all individuals to achieve economic self-sufficiency and security. So first of all, I said it's too long, and I said it seems to me we should be about promoting student success and achievement by practicing exemplary principles of governance, ensuring student success. So we'll work on that.
It was a large committee that came up with that, I suspect.
I didn't think I could change their mission in one meeting. But in any event, then we met all day Saturday. We evaluated our president and our board. And then Sunday morning, we had the business meeting from 8 till noon. So I'm very enthused. Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to represent us. I'm looking forward to what we can do at AACCT. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I apologize. We apparently lost Mr. Cross, so I'm trying to have dial the area code.
And I really wanted to filibuster. I learned that in D.C. so that your meeting wouldn't be over within an hour because we didn't finish a meeting with the previous chair in an hour.
Yeah, you weren't here.
Yeah, you may not have been here.
I might not have been here.
Thank you. Questions for Dr. Cook? I appreciate your presence on the National Board for a lot of reasons, but the free or debt-reduced or whatever college education needs input from people that govern at community college levels, because my fear is what strings will come with that federal effort. And our effort is to keep as much local governance as we can and control here. And whenever Washington gets involved, and for that matter, sometimes whenever Topeka gets involved, we get strings attached to whatever we get. So I know you'll have input into that, and that will be helpful.
You've reached the voicemail of Lee Cross.
Yeah, he tried. All right. Thank you all for the reports. We're now ready for the consent agenda. The board will consider the consent agenda, which includes a number of routine and consensus items that are typically considered collectively and approved in a single motion and vote. Any member of the board may request that a particular item be removed from the consent agenda and considered and debated and voted upon separately.
Excuse me. Trustee Ingram has a report to make.
Oh, man, that's two. Trustee Ingram, would you love to give us a report on the foundation?
I wasn't sure what protocol was.
Yell at me. I apologize.
No. But it's going to be well worth it, so I appreciate it. No, I appreciate it. I do want to share this report, however. We met this past Tuesday on July 14th, and I appreciate the work of Kate Allen in putting this together with me, so thank you very much to Kate. The new officers of the Foundation Executive Committee met this past Tuesday, joining trustees Ingram and Cook on the committee for this fiscal year. Our President, Brad Bergman, Vice President Mary Birch, Treasurer Suze Parker, Secretary Dr. Joe Sopcich, Past President Stuart Stein, Cultural Arts Liaison is Susan Shen. We have 4 members at large: Brian Biggs, Marshawn Butler, Pam Pop, Tom Mitchell, and the Faculty Association President, Ron Palchik, and Student Senate President, John Rives. We're all there. The fiscal year 16 operating budget for the foundation was approved at this meeting. This budget comes exclusively from a portion of the earnings on foundation funds. This is not supported by and is separate from the college's general fund. Executive Director Kate Allen indicated that the budget is in its strongest position to date. The foundation now has all funding in place prior to the fiscal year. Previously, you'll remember that the income was spent as it came in. In addition to covering operational expenses, 1/3 of the budget is directed to scholarships, with the commitment doubling in fiscal year 16 from $50,000 to $100,000. This will supplement the more than $1 million the foundation already awards each year in scholarship funds. It was reported that for the first time in history, the Carlson Center fiscal year 15 programming budget was in the black. Performing Arts Series ticket sales, memberships, sponsorships, grants, and other donations completely covered the programming expenses. Being a $1.1 million operation, this is no small accomplishment, and kudos were given to Emily Bierman and her team for their ongoing dedication to this effort. We've discussed the Some Enchanted Evening. Nearly $350,000 has been raised to date. The gala will be held on November 14th at the Overland Park Marriott. Ramin and Ashley Cherafat are the chairs this year, and you'll remember that the 2015 Johnson County Inn of the Year, Dr. Mary Davidson Cohen, will be honored at that event. 2 more dates to remember for the fall include September 2nd at noon, which is the Student Scholarship Celebration Luncheon in the Capitol Federal Conference Room, and October 20th is the Foundation Annual Dinner, with time and location to be announced. And that concludes the report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work on the foundation. This college couldn't do what it does without the foundation. Any questions of Trustee Ingram? Okay. Thank you. Back to the consent agenda. I'm not going to go through the start again. Does anybody have anything they want to pull off the consent agenda? Trustee Lindstrom.
I don't have anything I want to pull off, but I have a question. I didn't make the last meeting, so my question is on protocol for approving the minutes. Do I abstain because I wasn't here?
I think in the past, I suppose it's totally up to you, but your call.
I don't think we've ever had an abstention for such a vote, so I would not abstain.
Okay.
Good question, though, because you weren't here, you don't know if they're accurate or not. All right, there are nothing to remove. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 6-0. Trustee Cross is not on the phone. We have no executive session tonight. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned. Thank you all.